condensed milk adds like an angelic touch to many cooking recipes, especially baked goods. It seems to just make everything taste better. In some countries, you can find it in almost all the grocery stores and at a reasonable price. But in other countries, like where I grew up, it was scarce and very costly. Today, I'm going to show you how simple it is to make condensed milk at home, and all you need is 2 basic ingredients. Thanks for joining me. Hope you're doing well and taking good care of yourself. So the first thing you need is like a heavy bottom pot. You need a heavy bottom pot because it's going to hold the heat and it's not going to burn the milk easily. I'm using this enamel cast iron pot. You can use a stainless steel or a non-stick pan also. And I'm gonna add the milk and sugar before I turn the stove on. I'm adding 2 cups of whole milk. It is recommended to use whole milk unless you are making low fat or skim condensed milk. Then you can use the low fat or the skim milk. I'm making the regular one today. And some white sugar. It is also recommended to use the white sugar. You want your condensed milk to be more on the white, creamier side. The brown sugar might change the color. Now I'm gonna stir this up really well to get all, if not most of the sugar dissolved before I turn the heat on. And you can feel the roughness of the sugar grains whilst you are moving your spoon or spatula around. And as the sugar is dissolving, you'll start to get a smoother turn with your spoon. Then we're gonna turn our stove on low heat. Keep stirring it, and you wanna make sure that all the sugar is completely dissolved before you increase the heat and the milk starts to simmer. And this is very important because if the sugar is not completely dissolved and the milk starts to simmer, then the sugar can start to crystallize and you can end up with little lumps of like candies and which is not a terrible thing. Candies is good. I love candies, but we're not making candies today. We're making sweetened condensed milk. Another day we're gonna make some candies. And once you feel your spoon turning very smooth in the bottom, you can increase the heat, but you want to increase it by a little bit only, not too much. And our stove may be different, so you want to adjust your heat to where the milk is gonna go into a low, gentle simmer. You don't want it to boil or bubbles stacking up on each other. A few tiny little bubbles here and there is okay. One quick tip, the easiest way to know when your condensed milk is ready is when it's reduced to half the amount you started with. So you can take like a spoon or a spatula and mark the level where it's at, and then we're going to reduce it by half. And you can also look at the consistency, but you want to take it out when it's like in a syrupy state. You don't want it to be too thick because when it cools down, it's going to get thicker. So don't wait for it to look like the condensed milk that's in the can, because once it cools down, it's going to get thicker. And then you're going to end up with candies. Once all the sugar is completely dissolved and you can see steam coming up in the pot, we don't need to stir it anymore. We'll take our spoon out and let it slowly simmer on low heat for about 45 minutes to an hour. I'll take a little peek in between and I'll show you as we go. And this is at the half-hour mark and the heat is perfect. I can see a small number of bubbles here and there, and some foam accumulating around the edges and the steam coming up on the top. This is just what we wanted. We don't want too much going on, too much activities going on in the pot. We'll leave it alone and let it simmer away for another 15 minutes and then we'll check on it. At the 45 minutes mark, you'll notice the color changing to like a creamy peachy color. At this point, you can test it. If you use your spoon to put a marker, then you can test it, or you can look at the consistency, and if it starts to look syrupy, then you can remove it from the heat. Mine needs a little bit more time, and like I said earlier, the cook time can vary depending on the stove. So if yours is ready, you can remove it from the heat. And you'll notice some foam all around the edges. Now you want to get those foam out. So you can take like a small spoon and scoop around the edges to get it out. It's going to be a little bit sticky, so if it's stuck to the spoon, you can take like a small bowl with some water and you can dip it to release it. You may also see like a thin film on top, and if that happens, we can pass it through the strainer, and this is going to collect any of the little film or a little bit of foam that's left. If you're looking at the consistency, this is what you want. You want it to slowly dribble off this spoon. You don't want it to be too thick. About 55 minutes and mine is good. I'll turn my stove off and I'll pass it through the strainer. The consistency may look a little thin right now, but once it cools down, it will thicken. And you can take a spatula and work it through. You want to make sure you get all of this precious goodness in there. So we started out with 2 cups of whole milk and we ended up with a little bit less than 1 cup of condensed milk, and that is perfect. I was having a little bit of camera lighting issues whilst the milk was on the stove. Hopefully you can get a clearer view here of what the consistency looks like, and this is before it cools down. I love condensed milk so much. Honestly, this really did happen. When I first came to America, my sister went to work and I was at home, and she had a lot of condensed milk. So I decided to enjoy 1 can that day. I opened it and periodically through the day, I finished the whole can. So when she came home, she saw the empty can and she asked me, "Did you eat that condensed milk?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Did you eat the whole can?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Did you look at the cans to read how much calories and sugar is in here?" I was like, "No, where I come from, we don't count calories and sugar." And from that day, she made me read every label before I eat anything. And I still do. And this is our final product after it had a chance to cool down for a little bit. The consistency is thick, smooth, silky, just right. You can store it in the refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. Now, if you want to make your favorite dessert or ice cream and you don't have any condensed milk at home, you can make your own. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to my channel if you didn't yet, and share my link. I will greatly appreciate it. Stay safe. Love you guys.